Page 149, lesson 3.3 is on the percent equation. So if you look on 149, Fran is shopping for a new pair of shoes. She did some research and has narrowed the options to the two pairs she likes the most. Based on buyers' reviews, which pair do you recommend that she buy, and explain your thinking? So you can see the first pair of shoes has 19 out of 25 positive reviews. The second pair of shoes has 99 out of 132 positive reviews. So different ways we could do this. One thing we could try to do is we could try to get a common denominator to figure out how exactly these compare to each other, like what percent of the people reviewed this positively, which really for the first one wouldn't be too bad if we would just multiply both of those by 4. We could do that instead, and that would be 76 over 100, which is 76%. So 76% positive reviews for the first pair of shoes. The second pair of shoes, 99 out of 132. Those numbers aren't quite so nice to try to get that to be a number out of 100. One thing you can do, though, to find out what percent something is, you can just divide it out. So we could divide 99 by 132. And that actually comes out as 75 hundredths. That's a decimal. And then if you move the decimal 2 spots to the right, that would mean 75%. And since it came out so nicely, what we could have actually done then means we could have reduced 9 plus 9 is 18, 1 plus 3 plus 2 is 6. So 18 and 6 are both divisible by 3. We could have reduced both of those by 3, and that would be 33 over 44. And then you can reduce both of those by 11, which would be 3/4. So very in disguise. We wouldn't have known that to be 3/4 based off the numbers there, but that's actually what it was. So one way we could look at this then, we could say the first pair of shoes had a higher percentage of positive reviews. It was very close, though. The other thing you could do is, since it was such a close call, you might say, well, the second pair of shoes had a lot more reviews overall, though, so I'm just going to go that route. And that could be argued either way. Example 1. In science class, students compared their vertical reach and height to see if they're proportional. Maria is 60 inches tall and can reach 75 inches high. What percent of her total vertical reach is her height? So what they're doing over here to the right, they are developing this percent equation based off the percent proportion. They're starting with the percent proportion and then working through to get this percent equation. Part is equal to the percent times the whole. And this kind of has the same form the book mentions as this y equals mx format. Anyway, so on this problem, they've got the height equals the percent of the vertical reach. So 60 equals p times 75. And then if you divide by 75 on both sides, you would get 80 hundredths, which means her height is 80% of her total vertical reach. One other thing, as you do these problems that might make it easier than just memorizing that formula, is if you just remember two things when you do these problems. If you see the word of, that means multiply. And if you see the word is, that means equals. So of means multiply, is means equals. if we just remember those things, if you look at this last question here, so it says what percent, so that's what we're trying to find. So if you want to do P for percent of, so of means times her total vertical reach, that was 75, is means equals, her height is 60. And if you look at that, basically we came up with the same equation that the book did, only we have things on the opposite sides of the equation, which is fine. And then just like the book did, we could say they're multiplying, so we divide and then move your decimal over 2 spots, which would be 80%. And again, I prefer this, just remembering these two things rather than remembering that equation. Sometimes it's hard to figure out where the things need to go into that equation. So on the try it, an elephant weighs 15,000 pounds on Earth and 2,500 pounds on the moon. Assuming the weights are proportional, what percent of its weight on Earth is its weight on the moon? So we're just going to take that question just like we did on the last one. We can create an equation out of that. So it says what percent, that's what we're trying to find. So I'm just going to do P for percent. It says of, and then its weight on Earth, that's 15,000, is, so equals, its weight on the moon, which is 2,500 pounds. So once we get that set up, we can say the variable is being multiplied, so we can divide by 15,000 on both sides. And when you divide that out, it doesn't come out evenly. It's about 167 thousandths. And if you move that over 2 spots, that would be about 16.7%. It just depends on how they want us to round this. You know, if they say nearest percent, we would go 17%. If they don't say anything about rounding, I guess this is 16.6 repeating percent. So it kind of just depends on the end part, how they ask us to round this off. Another thing you could do besides this is you could do this as a proportion like we did in the last section. So you could have 2,500 over 15,000 equals x over 100. So this is like the part over the whole, like we did in the last section. And then you might notice this is, if you do 15,000 divided by 100, that would be 150. So if you divide by 150, and then you would get the same answer. The difference with doing the proportion is you are going to get right here, this would be about 16.7%. You would actually get 16.7. This other way with doing the percent equation, since we're finding the percent, we actually have to move the decimal over and change it from a decimal to a percent. Example 2, many states have a meal tax that is proportional to the total spent on food and beverages. In one state, the meal tax is 8.44%. How much tax will a customer pay if the food and beverages total $54? Okay, so basically what they're saying is the tax is 8.44% of the total spent. So if we go off of that, we could say the tax, that's what we're trying to find, is 8.44%. So we change that to a decimal. Change the percent to a decimal. Of means multiply. And then the total that was spent was $54. And then just like the book did, if you work that out, round it off to the nearest hundredth, that would be $4.56 in tax. And you may be able to just look at that and say, well, I know I'm taking 8.44% of the $54, so work it out. One thing to remember as far as moving your decimal point, if you're changing a percent to a decimal, you're always moving the decimal 2 places. The question is, do we move to the left or do we move to the right? So a way to help you remember that, this percent sign is bigger than a decimal point. So just like a percent sign is bigger than a decimal point, our number as a percent, so on this problem, 8.44% is bigger than 0.0844. Just looking at the number part, okay? In other words, if these are actually equivalent to each other, but if you ignore that percent sign at the end, 8.44 is bigger than 844 10,000ths. So that's a way to help you remember our number as a percent is going to be looking different than, or is going to be looking bigger than our number as a decimal. Example 3, Jane earns a 5.5% commission on the selling price of each home she sells. She earned $9,020 in commission on the sale of a home. What was the selling price of the home? Okay, so commission is, the book talks about it over here a little bit. Sometimes people make money or they earn money based off of selling things. So like if you're selling houses, you're selling cars, different things like that. And it may not be all of your salary. You might get a certain amount of money regardless. But a lot of the cases, those kind of jobs depend on selling items. And part of that is just, making sure that, I guess, people are motivated to work hard. If your paycheck depends on selling things, that's going to be more of a motivation for you to make sure that you are selling things. So anyway, different ways we could do this. The book's doing this as a percent equation. So they're saying $9,020 is 5.5% of the value of the house, basically, is how they came up with this equation. And then they divided on both sides, and they got that the house would have been $164,000. Again, another option you have, especially if the wording isn't really set up here as well, of saying of is multiply, is equals. So if you wanted to do a proportion, you could say 5.5%, so that's 5.5 out of 100 equals, and this is the 5.5% is the commission. So 5.5% is the commission. On the other side of our proportion, $9,020 is the commission as well. And then you could say, I'm trying to find what the value of the house is. If you do, looking across, if you go with 9,020 divided by 5.5, you would get 1,640. So that means we're multiplying by 1,640. And then if you work that out, that would give you $164,000. So it kind of just depends on the problem. If the wording is set up where it's got the is and of, I would probably go with the percent equation personally. If it's set up like this one is, I would maybe go with the percent proportion. But it's kind of up to you on which method you prefer to solve these with. Just giving you another option here in this section. So if you look at the try it, to make a profit a clothing store sells jeans at 115% of the amount they paid for them. And how much did the store pay for the jeans shown? Okay, and the deal is they have to sell things for more than they bought them for, because they have to pay their workers, they have to pay electricity, property taxes, all kinds of things. So it makes sense they're gonna, they can't sell them for the price they bought them, or they're gonna go out of business. They won't be able to pay their workers and things. Okay, so if you look, the $28 is what they are selling them for. So one way we could look at this is sells and paid. It's 115% they're selling them for. They paid 100%. They're also selling them by a dollar amount. They're selling them for $28, and we're trying to figure out how much they paid for them. So this would be one way you could do this. And if you try to look for a pattern with this, if you do 115 divided by 28, it doesn't come out very well at all. You could leave that number in your calculator and work with it that way. Another option would be, if that's not a nice pattern, you could do 115 divided by 100, and that's 1.15. So that's going to be a lot nicer of a pattern. Make sure you go towards your variable. So to get from 115 to 100, then that would be dividing by 1.15. So if you take 28 divided by 1.15, it doesn't come out exactly, but it would be about $24.35. Okay, should come out like 24.34782609, but we'll just round that off to $24.35. Another way you could do this is you could say it's $28. We could kind of just come up with something on our own here. $28 is 115%, and you can kind of take the second sentence here. They sell the jeans for $28, which is 115%, change that to a decimal, of the amount that they paid for them, and that's what we're trying to find. And so if you do it this way, they're multiplying, so divide by 1.15, and you'll get that same answer, $24.35. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of how to use the percent equation, and we've got one more video coming after this to help you figure this out a little bit better even. Have a good day.